Story 1. I've always preferred the quiet of the countryside. After 40 years as a welder, I retired out here to a small patch of land in Bozeman, Montana. It's peaceful, the air's clean, and there's nothing but open fields and pine trees as far as you can see. I live alone now. My wife, Lorna, passed away from cancer 6 years ago, and the kids are scattered across the country doing their own thing. It's just me and Tucker now, my old shepherd mix, who follows me around like a shadow. The house is too big for one man, sure, but I've never been able to bring myself to leave. There are too many memories in these walls. One thing I still enjoy is my nightly walks. It helps me clear my head. I usually do a loop around the property right after dinner, flashlight in one hand, Tucker at my side. It's familiar, reassuring. But last week, something changed. It was around 9:30, maybe a little later. I had just finished cleaning up the shop out back and decided to get some air. The stars were out, crisp air coming down from the mountains, and everything felt normal until I started heading back toward the house. I don't know what made me look up, but I did. And there it was. Movement. In the second-story window, the one from our old bedroom. I froze. Just for a second. I could have sworn I saw someone up there. A shadow or a flicker or something. My first thought was maybe the curtain moved, but there aren't any curtains in that room anymore. I haven't been in there since the funeral. Haven't touched a thing. I locked the door years ago. Seeing something up there? That didn't sit right. My heart started thudding in my chest, and poor Tucker stiffened up beside me. He didn't bark, but I could tell he sensed it too. I stood there for maybe half a minute, just staring at that window, trying to convince myself it was nothing, but I couldn't. Eventually, I made my way back into the house, grabbing the heavy flashlight I keep by the door. I didn't want to scare myself into thinking it was something serious, but I wasn't going to ignore it either. Step by step, I climbed those stairs. My boots echoed in the hallway like thunder. The closer I got to the room, the colder it felt. I told myself it was just nerves. When I reached the door, I hesitated. My hand hovered on the knob for a moment before I turned it. The door creaked open. Everything was the same, untouched. The bed was still made, just like Lorna left it. The dresser was still dusty, the air stale, and still. I walked in slowly, scanning every corner, every shadow. Nothing. No signs of entry. No open windows. No footprints. Nothing moved. But even though I didn't find anything, I couldn't shake the feeling that something had been there. It was like walking into a room right after someone left, when the air still feels heavy with their presence. I stood there for a while, longer than I probably should have, just listening. It was quiet, too quiet. Eventually, I told myself I was being foolish. Maybe I was just tired. Maybe it was the moonlight playing tricks on me. But that night, I locked the bedroom door again, real tight. I didn't tell anyone. There's not really anyone to tell, honestly. But I kept thinking about it, about what I saw, or thought I saw, and I started to wonder, what if it wasn't just my imagination? What if something had been watching me from that window? A few nights after I saw the movement in the window, things started getting stranger. I woke up just past midnight to the sound of Tucker growling at the foot of my bed. He never growls unless something's really wrong. At first, I thought maybe a coyote had gotten too close to the house, but Tucker wasn't facing the door. He was staring straight up at the ceiling. My blood ran cold. Right above my bedroom is the old master suite, the one I hadn't set foot in since Lorna passed. I sat up and listened. For a few seconds, I heard nothing. Then, I heard it. Faint, slow, creaking, like footsteps on the floorboards above me, one after another. I didn't want to believe it, but I knew that sound. It wasn't the house settling. It was a movement, deliberate. I got out of bed, heart pounding, and grabbed the flashlight again. I didn't bother putting on shoes. I walked down the hallway, past the family photos, past the closed guest room, and stood at the base of the stairs. Tucker was behind me, tense, but silent. I climbed the stairs as quietly as I could, every step groaning under my weight. When I got to the top, I didn't hesitate this time. I went straight to the door, turned the handle, and pushed it open. The room was dark and still, just like before. Nothing was out of place. The air was cold again, colder than the rest of the house. I stood there for a long moment, feeling like a fool. I checked the closet, the corners, even under the bed. Nothing. But something felt wrong. The kind of wrong that sinks into your bones. I didn't sleep much that night, and things didn't stop there. The next evening, I found the kitchen lights on when I came downstairs for a drink. I knew I'd turned them off. I always do. I don't leave lights on, not even by accident. The following night, I heard what sounded like someone walking down the hallway upstairs while I was sitting on the couch. When I checked again, nothing. No open windows. No signs of a break-in. But the final straw came 4 nights later. I couldn't sleep, so I decided to check the upstairs room again. Maybe I was losing it. Maybe I just needed closure. I opened the door, and my heart nearly stopped. Lorna's clothes were scattered all over the floor. Dresses, sweaters, scarves. The same ones I had boxed up and stored in the attic after the funeral. I hadn't touched that box in years. I remember packing it myself. My hands started shaking, and that's when I saw her. A woman, standing just inside the doorway, partially in shadow. She wasn't Lorna. Too short. Her hair was darker, her posture was stiff. She didn't speak, didn't move, just watched me. I stood frozen, staring back, trying to process what I was seeing. Then, without a word, she turned and bolted out of the room. I chased after her, down the stairs and out the front door. But by the time I got outside, she was gone, vanished. Tucker and I searched the yard with flashlights, the whole perimeter, even the tool shed. Nothing. No footprints, no broken branches, no sound, just the wind and the dark. I didn't sleep at all that night. I haven't really slept since. I started keeping my hunting rifle next to the bed. I keep the doors locked tight, the windows checked twice. Every night I lie awake waiting. Sometimes I hear footsteps above me. Sometimes I see shadows move across the walls. I keep telling myself maybe it was a break-in. Maybe someone's messing with me. But deep down, I know better. She was watching me, and I think she still is. Story 2. The moment Marcus and I saw the 4th guy standing just inside the tree line, everything changed. Up until that point, I had managed to convince myself that it was all just a coincidence, a weird late-night overlap of strangers doing the same thing. But seeing him there, half hidden in the dark, staring at us, holding something in his hand that I couldn't make out, that killed whatever illusion of safety I had left. I remember locking eyes with Marcus, and knowing without saying a word that it was time to run. We didn't ask questions. We didn't wait to see what he was holding. We just turned and bolted down that winding path back toward the parking area. I could hear footsteps behind us. More than one set. The guys we'd talked to were running after us now. No more laughing. No more pretending to be chill. Just heavy, fast footsteps closing in. The trail felt a lot longer going down than it did coming up. I couldn't risk looking back. Every instinct in my body told me to just keep moving. Tucker would have been barking like mad if he were there, but he wasn't. It was just us, 2 guys running for our lives under a sky full of stars that suddenly didn't feel beautiful anymore. We finally reached the gravel lot and sprinted to our cars. I fumbled with my keys, hands shaking so hard I nearly dropped them, and Marcus was yelling at me to hurry. As soon as I got my door open, I dove in, started the engine, and peeled out of there like my life depended on it. Because honestly, it might have. In my rearview mirror, I saw them. The guys were rushing back to their Volkswagen, trying to jump in and follow. I didn't wait to find out if they would. I took the long way home, weaving through side streets, making sure I wasn't being tailed. I kept checking my mirrors over and over until my vision blurred. There was no way I was driving straight home. I called Marcus and told him to meet me near his place instead, somewhere public. We parked on opposite ends of the same strip mall and sat in our cars for a while, trying to calm down. When he got out and walked over to mine, he looked pale and sweaty. I was the same. We didn't say much at first, just kind of stood there staring into space. Eventually, Marcus pulled out his phone and showed me a blurry photo he had taken while those guys were walking toward us up at the lookout. I don't even know how he managed to take it without them noticing. You couldn't see their faces clearly, but it was enough. I convinced him to come with me the next day to that McDonald's. I had to do something, even if it was just reporting the guy in the uniform. We went in around noon and asked to speak to a manager or someone in charge. The kid at the counter looked young, maybe 19, but he listened when we told him what happened. When we showed him the photo, his eyes went wide. He asked us to wait a minute and then came back with another employee who looked more serious. That's when we found out the guy with the McDonald's hoodie used to work there, but had been fired. Apparently, he'd been stalking one of the girls who worked there, his ex-girlfriend. Things got so bad that she had to file a restraining order. He'd been violating it for weeks. The cops had been called before but never caught him in the act. They told us he'd been camping out in the parking lot almost every night. That's what we had seen. That's who had followed me. It wasn't random. It wasn't innocent. It was a guy with a record for harassment. And now he had friends helping him do God knows what. I still don't know why they picked me. Maybe I was just the unlucky one that night. I haven't been back to that McDonald's since. I haven't gone near the preserve either. I've been switching up my routes, keeping my head down. I wish I could feel normal again. But something about that night stuck with me. That feeling of being watched. It hasn't gone away. At first, everything felt normal again. Marcus and I sat on the rock wall near the overlook, eating our food and watching the city lights shimmer below us. It reminded me of high school, when we used to come up here just to talk and escape whatever nonsense was going on at home. The air was cool, and for a few minutes, I let myself forget about the Volkswagen. I even laughed at something stupid Marcus said, but that calm didn't last. We both heard voices approaching. At first, it was just a low murmur, talking, maybe laughing, but it was getting closer fast. We turned around and saw 3 guys walking up the path. One of them was holding what looked like a blunt. I recognized them immediately. They were from Volkswagen. I could feel my stomach twist into a knot. They were trying to act casual, like it was all some random hangout. The guy in front, the one with the blunt, had tattoos all over his arms and a silver nose ring. He gave a kind of half smile and asked if we wanted to smoke. We both shook our heads and said no, trying to sound chill. One of the others laughed and muttered something under his breath. Marcus didn't say anything, but I could tell he didn't like it either. I wasn't planning to talk much, but then I slipped and asked a dumb question: why they were parked at the McDonald's for so long. I don't even know why I said it. Maybe I was hoping they'd lie and I could catch them in it. But the reaction I got, it scared me. The guy with the nose ring stopped smiling. All 3 of them suddenly looked different. Cold, still. They just stared at me, not saying anything. For a few seconds, it was like time froze. That's when I remembered something that made my blood run cold. There were 4 doors on that car. I saw 4 of them get out, but only 3 were standing in front of us now. 1 was missing. I looked at Marcus, and he must have realized the same thing because I saw the color drain from his face. Then he slowly turned his head toward the trees. I followed his gaze and saw him, the 4th guy, half hidden in the dark, standing between 2 trees like he'd been watching the whole time. He wasn't smoking. He wasn't laughing. He was just standing there, and he was holding something in his hand, long and shiny. I don't know what it was. I didn't want to find out. Marcus and I didn't wait. We turned and started walking, fast. We didn't run, not yet. We just acted like we were heading back, trying not to draw attention. But I could feel their eyes on our backs. Every step felt heavier. When we made it around the curve and the overlook was out of sight, Marcus whispered, "Run," and we did. Full sprint. The gravel path was uneven, and I could hear them behind us. I didn't look back. I couldn't. My only focus was to get to the car, get in, and drive. My heart was pounding so hard it hurt. Every breath felt like it was burning my lungs. We made it to the parking area and split, each heading for our own car. I dove inside, locked the doors, and turned the key so fast my hand slipped. I finally got the engine roaring and sped out of there. In the rear view, I saw them running back to their car, shouting something I couldn't hear. I didn't go home. Neither did Marcus. We regrouped a few blocks away at a gas station and just sat there, trying to understand what had happened. Later, Marcus told me he had taken a photo of them earlier. We went back to McDonald's the next day to report it. Turns out, the guy with the blunt had been fired a month ago for stalking his ex, who used to work there. He'd been banned from the property. The police had been looking for him. I still don't know what would have happened if we hadn't run, but I can't stop thinking about the way that fourth guy stood there, silent, watching, like he was waiting. And maybe, just maybe, still is. Story 3. When I was a teenager, my friends and I used to sneak into abandoned buildings for fun. It sounds dumb now, but back then, it was one of the only things to do in our little town of Salem, Oregon. We weren't causing trouble, just chasing that weird mix of adrenaline and curiosity that comes with stepping into places you know you're not supposed to be. There was this one place we kept going back to, an old church off Harmony Street. It had been closed for years, half the windows boarded up, and a rusted chain-link fence wrapped around the entire property. The stained glass was shattered, and the cross on top leaned slightly to one side, like it was tired of holding on. One chilly October night, 6 of us decided to head back there after a football game. Me, Theo, Jada, Ashley, Dylan, and Gabe. We had a Bluetooth speaker, a few warm drinks, and just enough confidence to feel untouchable. The only way in was a broken window on the side that led into the old Sunday school wing. Once inside, it was always dead quiet. Just the crunch of glass under our shoes, and the occasional creak from the walls shifting in the cold. We didn't hang out in the sanctuary or offices. We always ended up in the basement. That's where it felt the most hidden. The stairs down were made of concrete, and you had to duck to avoid hitting your head on a rusted pipe. The floor was dirt, just packed, dry soil. No tiles, no carpet, just earth. There were 3 rooms down there. 2 were wide open, and one had a heavy wooden door that barely stayed on its hinges. We set up in the first open room, like usual. There was a busted couch, a few broken chairs, and an old bookcase with nothing but dust and spiderwebs. Dylan lit a candle and put it in the corner like that would somehow make it cozy. Theo kept making dumb jokes, trying to scare the girls, and Ashley was already on edge. But we all stayed. For a while, it was actually kind of fun. Music playing softly, someone passing around a thermos of spiked cider, just a bunch of kids pretending not to be afraid. But at some point, the energy shifted. I remember it clearly. We were mid-conversation when the door in the back, yes, that one rickety old door, slammed shut. Hard. It echoed through the basement, silencing all of us. We looked around at each other like maybe one of us did it, but no one was near it. The door was across the room, half in shadow. Nobody had moved in that direction. Gabe, Jada, and Dylan didn't wait. They grabbed their stuff and bolted up the stairs without a word. That left me, Theo, and Ashley. I was definitely shaken, but I didn't want to look like a coward. Theo tried to laugh it off, saying maybe it was the wind, even though there were no windows down there. Ashley wasn't buying it. She kept glancing over her shoulder, eyes darting toward the shadows behind that door. After a minute or 2 of silence, we agreed to at least check it out before leaving. Maybe we thought it would help us sleep later if we saw it was just an empty room. We crossed the basement slowly, the dirt crunching under our feet, flashlight beam shaking slightly in my hand. When we opened the door, the first thing I saw was a dresser. The mirror on top was cracked, and the glass was dusty. But what stood out was the smear of something red across the surface. It looked like paint at first, but it had a strange shine to it, like it hadn't dried all the way. Ashley stepped back. I stepped closer, and the room suddenly felt colder. like someone had just left, like we weren't alone. I remember staring at that mirror, trying to convince myself it was just old paint. Maybe someone had been down there tagging stuff or messing around, but it didn't feel like that. It looked fresh, too fresh. There was something about the way it caught the light, like it had just been smeared minutes ago. And then I noticed the photo. Sitting right there on the edge of the dresser was a black and white picture in a cracked frame. It showed a woman in a wedding dress, standing stiffly and smiling, but there was something wrong with her face. I couldn't figure it out. The longer I looked, the more it gave me that feeling like when you stare at a mannequin too long and it starts to feel real. I backed away, my stomach tight. Ashley whispered that we should leave. Theo, who'd been quiet this whole time, just nodded. For someone who liked to joke around, he looked dead serious now. We turned to go back through the basement, and that's when we heard the sound. A thump. Not loud, but close. And it was coming from the room we had just been in. None of us spoke. We just froze. That room had been empty. Completely. I'd looked in every corner. I don't know what it was that made us all move at once, but without a word, we grabbed our stuff and ran. We didn't look back. We just bolted up the stairs, our feet pounding against the concrete, Ashley gasping behind me. When we got to the broken window, Theo helped push her through first, then I followed. I scraped my hand on the glass on the way out, but didn't even feel it. We all landed hard on the grass outside, then climbed over the fence as fast as we could. Once we hit the sidewalk, nobody said a thing. We just stood there, breathing heavily, looking back at that dark building with its empty, hollow windows. I don't know what I thought I'd see, but I still looked. And in that moment, I saw something I still have a hard time talking about. There was a figure standing in the window, not moving, not pressed against the glass or doing anything dramatic, just standing there, watching. It was too far to make out any details, but the shape was clear. Shoulders, arms, and a head, like a person who'd been waiting for us to leave. My chest felt like it caved in. I told myself I was imagining it, that the shadows were playing tricks on me, but I knew what I saw. We didn't say anything until we were halfway home, and even then it was just nervous, laughter, and phrases like, "What the hell was that?" But none of us ever went back, not once. Even when people brought it up in conversation later, we'd shut it down. That night stuck with us. A few years later, I drove past the church again, or where it used to be. It had been torn down, replaced by a small apartment complex. I parked across the street and just stared at it. It looked normal. Bright paint, balconies, people walking their dogs. You'd never know what used to be there. You'd never feel the weight of the silence that lived inside that basement. I sometimes wonder what happened to that photo, or that dresser, or the mirror. I wonder if anyone else ever saw what we saw. And I wonder if whoever, or whatever, was in that room is still watching from somewhere else now. I'll never forget the way that silhouette looked. Just there. Like it had always been there. Like it never really left.